hold on.
Wow.
Okay, she is telling me. Okay, this is okay. This is. So basically, we are. The topic is evolution, essence, and form of performance art. So basically, what performance art is, it's really difficult to define. I would say that performance art is like a tool for evolution, but you know, people, and it gives us example how to search and fight for the freedom, how to find the freedom in our lives. But it's really difficult to accept freedom. So people cannot just confront that freedom. It's really difficult, especially when we are grown up in the society, in the patriarchal society, where many things are not actually allowed to us. So performance actually challenge all of these questions. Term performance came from actually the performance art, the performing, but performance art and performing art could be totally opposite. It's absurd in that way. I would say that performance art belong in this genre of performing art, but not all performing art are performance art. In English, it's really difficult to distinguish, because we call performance of the performance art and also performance of the ballet. In my language, there is two different words, which is easier to say. It's we more have this word to describe like scenic art. You know, we don't use performing art, very similar. So we distinguish these two. And like this, like performance art is the term to describe all this. You know, both together, performance art. It came actually out of visual art, out of conceptual art from this era in the 60s, but it has so many roots. So I would say that performance art is present from the beginning of time. And I will explain why it's like that. And performance art actually critiques, and it has the antagonistic position toward performing art, if you can understand it. It critiques it, you know, it critiques all these conventional forms, all the orthodoxy of the society. So in that way, it could be totally opposite of what we expect. It belongs to postmodernism, of course, as everything else. It develops itself on the foundation of Dadaism, Fluxus, installation, and conceptual art, as I already told you. And it gives the antithesis to the theater. Sometimes it could have the form of theater, but it questions the basic form of theater. The performing art has these four elements, like the space, the time, the body, and the audience. And the performance arts question these four parts. You know, as we all four are in the Buto, I would say that Buto is the part of everything, like part of performance art and performing art in the same time. It contains these four elements, but sometimes it just challenges these four elements. As we work together in our training, you see how can we actually deal with the space with our body. We never work with how we can do with the audience, but sometimes as we develop our performances in our endlessly performing art, you see we don't need audience. We can make it in for a video or something. So we already demonstrate what performance art can do. And I will give you the examples later how can this be questionable. So performance art is ephemeral, so it's for this moment. As also I can give the parallel with Buto. Buto also are focusing on this moment. But performance art in the beginning, many performance artists didn't want to, like the recordings didn't want to, they wanted their art to be just for this moment, just for this audience, and never to repeat, never to be never to have any kind of artifacts. But many art performances in the few after that actually had artifacts and had the recording, so we have now the idea how it happened. Okay, I already told, no, okay. It's challenged the audience many times, and this is, I would say that this is one of the very important elements in performance art. Many artists actually don't use this term performance art, but sometimes they could use like live art or actionist art. You know, there is famous group Viennese actionists, maybe some of you know it, and or intervention or even manovar. You know, this could be the term that that some artists could use for the performance art. The types of performance art could be like the body art, the fluxus, the happening, the actionist poetry, intermedia, Buto as well, because Buto is very multimedial, if I could say, and so on and so on. Over the time, there is so many genres of performance that now, well, I'm actually researching what types of performance could be there, but that could be some other lecture maybe. Yeah. Do you have some questions for now? No, okay. So first we are going to deal with the history, and through the history we will talk about the essence, the form, and everything. So we start with the roots, the tradition, the time of, you know, the Renaissance, Victoria era, like the 19th century, basically. Prehistory, like what happened in the beginning of 20th century, before the 60s and the conceptual art, the history from the 60s till now, and that's all. So the roots of performance art I could find in the shamanism, in the ancient shamanism, because the shamans were everything. The healers, the spiritual teachers, and also the artists, those who perform rituals and also were storytellers. And I could say this could be the root of the theater, of all art, and also the performance art in some way. Yeah, in that primitive way, we could see some elements that we have now, especially in the ritual art, performance art, that Buto as we use now. Also in the ancient time, there was this, if you remember from the history, there was in the ancient Greece and Rome and also Egypt, there was so many philosophers of that time. I could say that philosophers could be the artist or the pop culture of that time. So there was one particular school, Stoic school, in the Greece, who actually challenged the present time. There was subgenre of the Stoic school, call it the Cynics, which is the root of the cynicism, which you can find in the performance art often. And the father of the cynicism was the Diogen. And it was really interesting because every action of the Diogen looked like performance art today. Like this is the picture to describe the Diogen. For example, the cynic come from the Greek roots. I'm not sure what is the root, which means dog. And he wants to describe this school like living like a dog. So the Diogen was living under the bridge in this what's the name, the thingy round thingy, like with the dogs, like a dog with little fabrics on himself, not so much things. So he practically demonstrate his philosophy that nothing is important. Also, there was one example. He was walking around the street during the day, holding this candle, if I can say. And when they asked him why are you having candle during the day, he said, like, I'm searching for the man. So this act of him, I could say that it could look like a performance art. So I could say that Diogen could be the first performance artist. But there is the schools, there is critics who will say, yes, Diogen could be the first performance artist. Some would say, no, it's just look like so. But many cynics after the Diogen did similar stuff. And also the Stoic school is very similar to nowadays Buto and the philosophy of Taoism or Zen. So if you're interested, I recommend to look into the Stoic philosophy or Cynic philosophy. It's really interesting, and you can find so many exercises that they develop that you could use in your performance art. And I also use some of that exercises in your scripts, in your training with the Butsu training. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, do you have questions for now? No, okay. Okay, let's talk about the tradition. In many cultures, there is traditional performance art that is totally distinguished from the theater, from the visual art, and so on and so on. For example, in Japan, you have the geishas. Geishas basically means, in translation, performance artists. They live the monastic life. They have certain way of dress, way how they dress. They never got married, and they perform poetry. They perform the tea ceremony. They perform music and dance and so on and so on. But they were not part of the conventional theater, but the way of they were part of the entertainment, if I can say. So basically some kind of traditional form of performance art. If you can see, there is so many elements also used in Buto, if you're interested, but I'm really fascinated how actually geisha lives. And similar forms you have all over the Asia, in India, in China, in Indonesia, and so on and so on. Also the male version of geisha in Japan and in other countries, but also in Europe, like in the Celtic society, you have bards. Bards were the caste of the priests, like the first level of the Druid priesthood, who were the storytellers, the musicians, who were entertaining the people. In the Germanic culture, you have the Skalds or something like this. This is the same name. Also, the Slavic culture has the similar storytellers. In Serbian society, we have those who play this instrument called gusle and telling stories. And also you have jesters, the jokers in the medieval time. Yeah. And in many cultures, you have similar things, similar things that happen. So I could say this could show that performance art exists always in many times in many societies. Maybe you could recognize in your culture something similar, you know, probably for sure. I know for Germany and Russia, but yeah, in America there is also storytellers, you know, as you know, in some country, something. So yeah, I see Barbara totally confused. But
No,
she
I'm
will remember.
concentrating.
Okay, good. Okay, Preform. I find roots of performance art in vaudeville. Yeah, you know the vaudeville. Vaudeville. Do you know the vaudeville?
No.
Yeah. No, it's it's I don't know how to describe. It's a show in the 19th century, beginning of 20th century, who looks like a circus but without the animals. and it happened in a theater or the certain venues, especially in USA, in America. But also you have vaudeville in France and Britain, and it exists till the 20, I think, till the Second World War, something like this. Yeah. Many actors from the golden age of Hollywood were the part of the vaudeville, like the yeah, my brain is now like yeah, I don't remember the name. So the vaudeville, one of the example, I think you have a movie called vaudeville. You can see that. Yeah. Also, there is side shows or the freak shows. Yeah, it depends how you call it. In the 19th century, that's like the women with the beard or those with the two heads, and the guys who are swallowing the knives, and yeah, you know these stories. Also, the circus, very similar to these two, vaudeville and the freak shows were the part of the circus or very similar to the circus. The clowns were, we could say the clowns could be one of the um, traditional form of performance art. Many performance artists that I know, they would say that they could be some kind of clowns. Yeah. And there is also something that I would find very fascinating, and it was described by Franz Kafka in his book called The Hunger Artists. I think that's the translation in English. And it's really interesting thing in 19th century, beginning of 20th century, in the vaudevilles and circus, there was the artists who were sitting in the cage, fasting for 40 days. He didn't eat anything for the 40 days. And people came and pay to see somebody who is fasting for the 40 days. I think, Barbara, in German, it's like
Hungerkünstler?
Hungerkünstler. Yeah, that's the name. And I got this. This is very fascinating for me. This is performance art, pure performance art, but it's pre exists in it's pre-performance art basically. So, do you have questions for now? No. Okay. Okay, let's go into the origin. So, in origin, we will say, I find, you can see on my Facebook profile, I post one article, very interesting article. There is the artist movement called Les Incoherents. I think this is how you say. Exists Les Incoherents, or something like this. I'm not sure I pronounce very good. It's the art movement happened in France in 80s. So it's pre-Dada, but it looks like Dadaism. It's very similar, but it exists almost 30 years before Dada happened, and it was almost forgotten. But you have really nice article in English in my profile. Basically, you can read about this. It's really fascinating. I didn't know before about this movement. After this, we have Dadaism. This artist Hugo Boll, Dadaism started in Zurich, in this place called the Cabaret Voltaire, and there is so many artists around. I'm sorry, around him who developed this movement, and in many other countries, Dada exists in different names. In Yugoslavia, it's called Zenitism. But it was really popular at the time, and I would say that before the Second World War, it was basically the performance art of that time. And but we could see so many so many resemblance to today performance art. The part of Dada was not just visual art, but also the poetry and the music and theater and so on and so on. So this is one of the very famous performance by Hugo Ball. Also, there is Bauhaus. Uh, it's about, I would say that Bauhaus is the German version of Dadaism. But Bauhaus maybe focused more on architecture, and as you see, this is the famous ballet of Bauhaus. It's really interesting costumes and the way of movements. Many Buto dancers were inspired by Bauhaus, and I love the Bauhaus movement. Really, really fascinating. And I would say the Bauhaus would be original performance art, but many critics would say no, it's later. Yeah. Also, we have in that time actionist paintings and futurism as the roots of performance art, and I think this many performance artists find inspiration in these movements. And yeah, so is everything clear? Do you have questions for now? Okay. Yeah, Barbara, are you okay?
Yes, I'm okay. No, why do you think that the hunger artist is an ancient form of performance art?
Well, it's very conceptual in the way, because he was fasting for 40 days, just demonstrating the way that he's torturing basically his body. How many performance artists doing today. So it looks very similar.
Really, I know in Russia two people who did exactly this thing. They were in the cage of zoo for 2 weeks, but they have some
food.
some food, but it was a food for animals only. Special foods for animals. Sometimes they eat it, and they do everything on the open air, and every moment people can go and look at them, and they are in the open cage. So, no, very close, I think.
Barbara, do you think the hunger artist is not performance?
No. I'm just was thinking why for a moment, and
I don't think it was real. Yeah,
it's like a sensation for the people.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah.
But maybe it's an artist who wants to show himself suffering and like this.
I didn't find anywhere but at Kafka's and any more information about that.
Maybe he created this.
Maybe it could happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
this was
so.
just Kafka's idea, but I think I read it that this actually happened. But he, as Kafka was Kafka, he finds himself in the hunger artist. That it was really symbolical for him. Maybe the artist was not so much hungry. Maybe he was eating something. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know.
Marka, and why are you speaking about only Dadaism and not about surrealism? It's the same movement.
I forgot to mention the surrealism as well.
Because I think André Breton and other people, they made a lot of weird things in the streets and so on.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot surrealism. That's true. Yeah.
Have some forms of cabaret and street actions and a lot of these things.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Totally. I just forgot about, but it's very similar timing. There is more movements than this. Dada has many different forms, and basically the surrealism has many different forms. So I would like to know more, but I'm not sure what is all the form. I know that in Yugoslavia we have this Zenithism that we celebrate to this year, like 100 years of the Zenithism, and I performed in this exhibition of this movement. But yeah, you're right about the surrealism, but not just to surrealism. There was informel as the movement, and futurism, and
Yeah, of course.
yeah,
No, I think even early, maybe symbolists,
symbolic, yeah.
they did many strange things in France, for example, with strange everyday dresses and actions, like to walk not with dog but with tortarug, how to say.
How,
I forgot this animal. This ancient animal, which is goes very slowly, for example. Mm. To, uh,
we will remember.
Tortuga, something like this.
No, I
Uh,
don't.
no, doesn't matter. Just old people go for a walk with little dog, and they go with this
No,
very slow animal to show that they are dandy, and dandy never go quick, something like this. And it's also some kind of performance, I think.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know about that. Yeah, yeah, I will see about that. Yeah, thank you.
It's mostly maybe a history of dandyism of the beginning of 20th century.
Yeah,
Something
I
like
know
this.
about the symbolists, but I didn't know about this walking the dog. Yeah, cool.
Oh, if I to the end of this meeting remember how it goes, I will. Okay.
So the 1960s, this is when basically performance art started. The pioneers, this was all those, actually the end of 50s, I would say, and the 60s, and they were the pioneers basically of performance art. So we have the Viennese actionists. I don't know if you heard about them, that they were kind of movement, because one of the most famous was Hermann Nietzsche, artist. They were really, how can I say, extreme. Some of them actually basically died during the performance. They were really extreme, but I find them very fascinating because they were criticizing the society radically, and they inspired many artists later. So I would say that they would be one of the pioneers, very interesting pioneers. Also, we have avant-garde in USA. One of the example is Andy Warhol. Before the 70s, before the pop art, I basically like this Warhol work. I don't like pop art, but I like his videos and performances. So yeah, in USA we will say avant-garde. Also, there is living theater, especially in France, something that is like a theater, but really questioning the theater form. Fluxus, I would say the Fluxus could be the real root of performance art. And the most fascinating about Fluxus is the notation that Fluxus have. And using this notation, they create the performances. And there was really amazing artists of the Fluxus movement. Fluxus was really, for me, really similar to Dada. And I could say that Fluxus could be the revival of Dada in the 60s. It contains the visual arts, music, poetry, dance, and so on. So and the artists like Yoko Ono, you know her because of the Beatles, but I think she is really important representative of Fluxus, and she did some art for pieces that's actually Marina Abramovic become famous of for. She did before Marina Abramovic this allowing the audience to cut her clothes and so on. So you can find many interesting, and also there is John Cage, the American composer, and Scott Cunningham, he's the American choreographer. They were in relationship, and they create amazing pieces. They both were Fluxus artists who developed through the Fluxus. Also, Joseph Beuys, he's the European, very important performance art. I love Joseph Beuys very much, and I think this year was in the name of Joseph Beuys. One of my favorite pieces when he planted so many trees with the artist names. This is really interesting. I think this park still exists, and his piece with the wolf in America. This is really interesting piece as well. So if you're interested to learn more about Joseph Beuys, I recommend to just research. Also, there is process art. Process art is really interesting because it makes the foundation of the technique of performance, because process art focus on the process, not on the product on the end of the performance. So it's if we create the painting, the process of creating is focus of this art, but as a painting of itself, it's not important, but the process. So many artists use this technique nowadays, and I really love this. And for me, it's very important. I use it sometimes in my Buto pieces. I love the process. The dancing is very important. It's not important how we put it in the form, how we put it into the composition. It's just, it's important to dance. And also there is happening as a form, and happening was really dealing with the theater. Carol Sheeman and Chris Burden was one of the examples during the 60s, especially Carol Sheeman. I think I pronounce her name well. Some critics thinks that she is the mother or the grandmother of the performance arts, like that she actually started the movement as it is. And this is some examples. This is an example of the Viennese actionists, Yoko Ono piece where audience is cutting her, and Joseph Beuys. This is part of his photos. So yeah. Do you have questions or something to say now for the 60s? Yeah, you're not. Charlie.
Just I don't remember the name of group, but I saw on YouTube some fragments of great happening of 60s Dionysus 1969.
Yeah, I know.
You know it? I think it's also about.
Yeah, but it belongs to happening movement. So
yeah,
in this.
No,
yeah,
maybe also the beginning of postmodern contemporary dance also.
Could be. This I think this time people didn't focus much on what is the genre of art, but on the movement of itself.
Yeah,
so it could happen. Yeah, it could happen that they developed the dance or theater, but yeah, they were part of happening or the fluxus. So this was more important than what we do, basically. Later, I think that they in the 70s they define, okay, this is performance art, this is dance. But in these 50s and 60s, it's still like, okay, we are doing something, we are experimenting, and it's not important what it is. maybe
have you seen these fragments from this performance? It's free on.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's like very crazy reconstruction of mystery of celebration of Dionysus.
Yeah, I know that, but yeah, I need to see that again.
The spirit of 60s.
It's really interesting because what we know about the 60s, these all art forms are really questioning the society of that time. It's totally opposite of the society, of the conservative society. Well, it depends where you live. As I know from the movies in the USA and in the time of Yugoslavia, here was totally opposite. but it was still conservative. So these all art forms were questioning the society of that time. So it was really fascinating to know something about that. Yeah. Okay, then 70s. We need yeah, this is very slow. I thought it will be more faster. So the 70s more have focus on endurance, you know, these long performances. Well, now you know this famous performance of Marina Abramovic in MoMA museum that she did for 3 months, but before her there were so many artists who did endurance art, especially like Chris Bourdain, and he's really interesting artist. And also Marina did the endurance art before, and many artists today they focus on this. And as you know, our endlessly performing art is one. We could say that it's endurance art because we are doing for 1 year. And this is something interesting about this. Actually developed in 70s, we could say, maybe earlier, but it was really popular in that time. Also the video art started, video performances started to develop more in the 70s. Sorry. There is particular interesting group, the other, that I'm sorry, that was created by Ulay and Marina Abramovic, and they questioned the position of artists. And this was in the group that I started, that I was developing myself as an artist. They use this concept of questioning what is art, what's artist's position in the society, what makes you artists. And this is where I learned to call myself artist, and how it's important to use this title, if you can say, artists, and what this means to be an artist. You know, it will be the concept of basically the endurance performance art. Yeah. So, and the famous artists of this time were Chris Bourdain, Marina Abramovic, and the groups around Marina Abramovic. There were so many groups in the 70s in Yugoslavia, especially. Gina Pane is one of the very interesting artists that I know. So I will show you. This is Marina and Ulay, one of the famous piece of theirs. This is the Chris Bourdain. You can find, there is a new documentary movie about this art. He was really extreme body artist. And this is Carol Sheeman, and this is the piece from the, I think it's the beginning of 70s. And this piece is actually what they consider the start of the performance era. This is Gina Pane. She's also very much into body art, and she's questioning her body in art, and she's really important artist in performance history, I could say. Look into her, because she's really inspiring artist who I think she's active still. I'm not sure. Don't give me wrong. So, do you have any question or something to say for now? Okay, so let's go in the 80s. Well, in the 80s, that's the time where performance got this kind of idea of the form of the technique, what performance are. Authorities recognize the performance. Basically, you know, before this is absurd because 80s are so close to us. You know, it's so that this all performance idea was not so long. But this is a time where already they passed through the 60s and 70s, they passed through the Fluxus, Dada, and now they could say, okay, there is performance and this is how performance looks like. So, yeah. This is the time where the performance poetry started to develop and where the poets of the time, they see themselves into the performance. I could say that the slam poetry would develop through this, and I would say that slam poetry is the part of the performance art, but some of the slam poets would not say that, but I would say that it has the elements of performance. So basically, yeah, that's especially because the 70s and 80s were the time of the punk rock movements, and this is where all of this somehow goes together. Many punk or post-punks musicians basically coquette or basically work with performance, and you probably know so many of them. So to go back to the critics actually find performance as shocking for the audience because they challenged the audience before, but more the 80s art basically challenged the audience so many times. In the 80s in Yugoslavia, I could say, because I need to say about what I know in my surrounding, the performance was a little bit there was not so many performances, and all focus get out from Europe into USA and Latin America in the 80s, basically. So so yeah, 80s were a little bit 80s were a little bit silence for the Europe, but the 90s, not I would not say that was not performance art at all, but there was more focus on other media than performance. Also, in the performance in the 80s, there was very much focus on feminism, especially from many art groups like Guerrilla Girls, and artists like Laurie Anderson, one of my favorites, and very well-known Pina Bausch that we know. But she was a choreographer and a dancer, but working with feminism and performance art and the politics, actually criticizing the politics, being activists more. Maybe activism is good word for this. So this is Laurie Anderson. She's basically in both of this, like she was working with the performance poetry in the criticizing the chauvinistic society and showing her feminist action. How do you say activism? Yeah. This is Guerrilla Girls, and they would be the grandmothers of the Pussy Riot. Basically, they wear these monkey masks, yeah. And this is well-known Pina Bausch, yeah, one of my favorite artists. Probably you all know Pina Bausch, yeah. So for now, do you have anything to say? Question? No, okay. Do you agree with me? Okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so 90s. So in the 90s, we could see the professionalism in performance art. This is when many artists start to call themselves performance artists. When we see the professional behavior in the performance art. Um, um, so Europe is still a little bit silent, but in the parts like Balkan, the performance art becomes the tool of the politics, because we had these wars, and also in the post-Soviet countries, they use performance art as way of protests, the way of expressing their feelings of the time, and everything that happened. Yeah, the 90s for me were very dark. I don't know in the other countries. Many things happened in the 90s. So yeah, um, but performance art start to become more popular in Latin America, in the South and Central America, in Asia. Buto becomes more popular in the West and in the other countries out of Japan. Of course, there was Buto before the 90s, but especially 90s was the time where the Buto missionaries go out and teach people Buto. So the Buto could be the art of the 90s for all of us. And the Chinese performance art start to develop more and more during the 90s. So yeah, especially political performance were in East Europe. So the post-Soviet countries and post-Yugoslavian countries in Balkans, especially because all the wars and everything. And I think there was very interesting art pieces during the 90s. I remember one art piece during the 90s. There was one guy did the performance video. Actually, he screened the people at the exhibitions during the 90s in the Belgrade, how they behave, because it was hunger, so they didn't have anything to eat. So he screened them how they put all the foods from the opening of the exhibition in their pockets to bring home. So it was really very, but there was more radical art as well. But this was my favorite, because it was expressing this sadness of the time. Uh, about the professionalism of the 90s, there was so many galleries, and the museums are opening for the performance art, which is very new for the time, especially the Tate and MoMA Museum. And the Venetian Biennale starts to work with the performance art. Like Marina Abramovic did this piece of Balkan Baroque during the 90s, during the war and everything. So this was, but also the body art started to become more famous, more used, this painful, especially this painful body art. I show you some of the artists. Like this is Ronetti. He's a British artist, one of my favorite. He's extreme body artist, but also political. He deal with the HIV. He's still alive, thank God, but he did so many scandalous art pieces about the HIV at the time. This is Bovary, the Australian artist who deal with LGBT and the fashion as well, but in some political sense. Some of you maybe recognize him. And Franco B, for example, he was also this Italian body artist, and I know him personally. And I know Ronetti as well, but I met him 2 years ago, so he's one very interesting artist of that time, and not just of that time, but he started basically in the 90s. Do you have some questions about the 90s or something to say? Some examples? No. Yeah, no. Okay. So 2000s, this is my era. This is when I started to be a performance artist. So I could describe 2000s as a new media time, because in that time I see so many arts that are using the technology, using the computer, the internet. You know, in that time it was still new, was still expensive, you know, to use it, but people were so curious how they can use it. So many video arts as well. And also I could say that body art, especially the painful body art like scarping, branding, the suspension becomes more and more popular. Buto becomes very popular, especially in Europe, in USA, and it starts to many teachers were moved to Europe and USA to teach Buto, and a lot of us actually start doing Buto and performance art in the beginning of 2000s. Yeah. So some of the famous artists, I could say it's Kira O'Reilly. She actually start more to develop the conceptual performance and visuality using her body and the space, and she's really amazing artist, I could say. Also Stellark is one of the example of 2000s, but he's very old artist, so he belongs to so many eras, but yeah, he did some crazy stuff during the beginning of 2000s. Also, this is a piece of the Western page. They are German-Italian duo. They started in 2000s. I work with them, and they teach me how to um, combine different genres, different medias in performance art. They use poetry, dance, Buto, body art, theater, and so on, so many things combining together, and they started in 2006. I was part of the Corpus Artisticum movement, the group, during the beginning of 2000s. I was member in 2001 till 2010, I think, and I actually developed through them. I started doing Buto, I started doing my performance art. They were very famous in Balkans, I could say that. So yeah, yeah. In that time, there was so many artists starting to work to create art. Do you have something to add or to ask the question? Okay.
I want to ask,
Yeah.
how was she using her body? Was she dancing, or I
No,
don't know the name of her?
yeah. I don't know
How
how
was she?
to. Yeah.
Because this is great. The
Yeah.
photo is great, but was there reaction also?
I will send you. Maybe you should see. It's not.
Great.
It's not dance. It's basically movement or not movement at all. Just position in the place. Or you know, it's really difficult to describe her action. You know, it's not dance in the conventional way, but it's some kind of basically the maybe sometimes she don't have movement at all, but or she have intervention in the space by having movement toward this kind of things in the space or the space. Or sometimes she have a movement. So just you, maybe I will find some of the pieces and send you.
Yeah,
It could be. It's and she's not the only one. I watched some Italian group in 2019 who did similar stuff. It's really interesting. It's intervention in a space using their body. That could be the description. It's a movement, but it's not basically dance. You know, they just need to do something. Yeah.
Change positions.
Yeah, change positions or just use the body to do something, to paint, or you know, or just place themselves in the space. And this is really fascinating. Yeah, this is something that that could connect Buto with performance art because one of the first pieces by Tatsumi Hijikata was actually, he was just laying down in a space with very small movements, just showing the body. So yeah, this is really similar, and many Buto artists could use this technique. I don't know how to basically describe, but this is for me the real performance art. No, this is performance art. Yeah, just put your body in the space. Yeah, somehow, and be the part of the composition. This piece is really interesting. If you see how she lay down and what happened in the space. Yeah.
Somehow Yamo did it in
Exactly.
one of her videos where she was positioning in an arc.
Yeah, exactly.
From a wall and yeah, you remember, yes.
Yeah. But body is always the part of the performance art. So sometimes artists don't do anything. Sometimes they have action. Sometimes they dance. So it's great question, but we will talk about that a little bit later. Just a few seconds. We have two decades more. So we have 2010s. I think this is one of the most fascinating because this is the time when the performance art basically become institution, especially because this is a time when Marina Abramovic has this huge art piece called "The Artist is Present," and she becomes very popular. Many people who didn't know about the performance art, now they know about the performance art. They, all the housewives knows about the performance art, so it becomes an institution, and people start doing the workshops. They start developing the group performances, and many institutions opening the spaces, especially for the performance art. um, you got a new performance venues starting to open. So this is really a revolution into 2010s. So it's a previous decades, and yeah, I describe this time as transmedia because we transcend all the media, and performance art become art for itself. It do not belongs to anything. So now it is separate, and people could say, see, this is the separate. It becomes the part of the academical studies and so on and so on. Also, this is a time of radical performances, especially in the Eastern Europe. I would mention the Pussy Riot. Yeah, Charlie knows him.
No, also Pavlensky, maybe.
Yeah, I would like to mention Pavlensky. He's amazing. Oh my God.
It's more radical, I think.
Yeah. He's amazing. Yeah, but yeah, Pussy Riot reminds me of Guerrilla Girls. This is why I like.
They're also great.
Yeah,
I like them. Also as punk group.
Yeah, I like.
They are very nice.
Yeah, we mentioned the institutionalization, and there is collective performances. There is so many forms of collective performances, like in the form of protests or the flash mobs. Flash mobs becomes very popular in this time. Basically, public, the audience becomes the part of the performance art. They become the performance. So I would say that this is really something new. Performance is used in the marketing, in the protest, in so many things. It goes out of art, it goes into the industry, into the science. So I could say that 2010s becomes the decade of performance art. Basically, this is art of this decade. I would mention the Abel Ascona. He's also one of the interesting artists of this time. And maybe I'm, oh, there, Chelsea just go away. Well, maybe she will come back. Yeah, there is invisible performance. I mentioned to you before, invisible. I worked with this artist who did something without the art pieces, without artists. When we did some action in the city, but nobody knows about that. It's the performance is happening and that there is artists, but they feel something is happening. So there is some action, but nobody knows about what is happening basically. Yeah. So this is invisible performance, something that question these 4 parts of the performance art. So yeah, I show you some Pussy Riot and Peter Pawlenski. This piece is really interesting. Yeah, maybe, yeah, Barbara, I don't know if you heard about this
No.
artist. Yeah, no.
No, I don't know him.
Yeah, Pussy Riot, they were really protesting.
This I've heard, yes.
Yeah, maybe you, but they are the punk rock group. Yeah. And now we come to 2020s. Yeah, we know each other from since then. I would say that there is digital performance art and post-corona or corona art, where we protest or being inspired by the situation that we have, find ourselves, and using the digital media, using the internet, using Zoom as medias for performance art. Yeah, I show my Corona dance from the last year, and one of the most important movement of this decade is endlessly performing art. So it's yeah, so it's something that we started this decade, and I hope we'll make some revolution in the performance art of this decade. So there is 2 last thing that I want to talk about the performance art is the form of performance art. So one of the form is endurance or the timing. So performance art could be long as okay, something happened and I didn't. Can you see this everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, this Zoom is totally crazy. So the longevity of performance art could be like performance can be few seconds or 3 months or 1 year. Yeah, so or who knows how long, or for a lifetime. So this is something that is part of the form for the performance art. We already mentioned the process art. So the most important part of the performance is the process more than the product, and it could question the form. So if we put the dramatization of the into the form of performance art could question this. So we can play with that basically. The form could be the dance, the music, the acting, the storytelling. So this could be the form, the painting as well. As we mentioned, the action is painting. The body art as the action with our body. I could say that dance in a way is the body art, but in the body art we could use this painting to paint on our body, or we could use this painful body art, or the scarping, the branding, or using our body just as the art material. The ritual could be the form, using the inspiration from the spirituality, or using the inspiration of the ritual as the form to build the performance art. Ritual performances were very popular during the first decade of 2000s, and I built my performances over the ritual. So there is one artist, my friend, who did his PhD. He's a Spanish artist, and he created this website about performance artists who are queer, who are doing the ritual, and performance art. So I could send you the link. It's really, he had the lists of artists and art pieces, really interesting art pieces all over the world. Also, artists could be absent. I saw the performances that they didn't have the artist at all. Also, I mentioned the invisible art, invisible performance. So this could be also something think about. We are basically in endlessly performing art. We are absent. We are showing our videos, but there you can play with this. I unmute myself. Yeah, performance art could be multimedial. You can use different medias like the video or painting as well. I need to plug in. I'm sorry. Just a little break, 2 minutes just to plug in. Sorry. Yeah, I'm back. So, yeah, you understand. Also, it can be video performance, as you already know. Very well. It could be in a form of workshop. I recently find out about this, and I'm really interested in this. I heard about it. It could be created like that the people who are participating in workshop are actually participating in the performance, or you're doing the performance during the workshop, something like this, like playing with the workshop and the performance form. For me is something new, and I would like to research more about this. And also the form is interactive, working with the audience. Performance is often interactive, using the audience in the performance. So yeah, do you have any questions about this? No? Okay. About the essence, this is maybe one of the most important part of this story, and about the performance is the essence of the performance. If we go out of the form, how performance look like, it's why we start doing the performance and why its performance is important. So one of the thing in performance art is the presence. Artists must be present. So without the presence, there is no performance. Some or performance could not. It's not going to be very strong. Artist needs to focus on this presence, and without, if you have high presence, no matter what you do, performance will have impact on audience. It will have impact on itself. Yeah. We already talked about that. Yeah, so it's created in real time, in this time, this moment. It cannot be repeated every time. Even if we repeat the form, it would not be the same, because we will change the space, we will change our behavior at the time, we will change our mood, we will change the audience, so it will always be unique. Yeah, I already mentioned the uniqueness. Performance should be very unique. It cannot be repeated in the way, and should not, because the artist is talking about something, even if they use the form of the previous artist. He did it for the first time, and he did it in a special space, in the front of the special audience, so it will still be unique. But many artists is focusing on their unique action, on their unique way. Especially nowadays, there is so many people criticizing, telling that everything is done, that we cannot do anything special. But in this way, we should be as unique as possible, even if we using some other artist's piece. Yeah. Site specific, yeah. Our performance is all, dealing often with the site, with the spaces. Basically, the first performances were focusing on the theater and galleries, but slowly they go out into some other venues or some special places in outside, or yeah, some special places, some site specific. I could say in 2010s, it was really interesting topic. You know, many residencies were open about for the site-specific works. Yeah, maybe it was familiar to you all. Charlie is dealing with this site-specific lately. So many, in so many spaces of her work. Yeah. Composition, we already talked about this visuality of performance. This is what connect performance with visual art, is that at any time performance could catch this ideal picture and used as a visual art. This is how we can jump from media to media, but it's not important, so much important, but this is what connect us, this is what makes performance multimedia. The most important essence of performance is topic, the concept, the story. Even sometimes it's very paradoxical, very abstract, very absurd. It doesn't matter if it's absurd, or even sometimes we don't have a topic or concept of or story, and the story come, or the essence come out of the form. This could be as well, you know. Everything that I say as the part of the essence of form, it could be, but it can, it's not that it's not that important. You can play with that, basically. So what is the topics? It could be political, or the activists. It could be spiritual. Yeah, activists, yeah, I already mentioned. It could be abstract. It could, you know, means nothing, or it could have so many meanings. It could question the identity of the artist. Do you understand this, what I'm talking about? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. One of the things is action in the performance. What we do, we use dance, or we use some form of narration, the poetry narration, or even theater forms. But this action could be really essential in performance arts. Sometimes the action is that unique that it makes the performance art. So it's always, you know, it's always the part, you know, without it, we don't have performance art. Dramaturgy is not that important. It could follow the rules of the theatrical dramaturgy, but often the performance artist is criticizing the theater, so we are playing with this dramaturgical form. It's not that, you know, it's not focused on that. Yeah, we already mentioned this endurance, and I put it in the form and the essence, as sometimes it is part of the form, and sometimes it's a part of the essence. And this is why I could go back to the Hunger Artist of the Kafka, as his action is to fast. You know, he's sitting for the 40 days as the longevity and fasting, and this becomes performance. And so the form could become the essence, as the question of the timing, if you can understand. Just maybe we can play with the timing of the performance, and the question, the topic and the concept could be the timing. Our action could be the timing. If we put it together, our endlessly performing arts, of course, we have so many art pieces that are dealing with the different topics, but our main goal is to produce this endless performance that never stops. basically. So this could be our group work. If we do these exhibitions next year, so basically this will be group longevity performance. Yeah, have fun. You know, you can basically have fun in performance, and I think this is why we are doing. There is some people said like this is, as a performance artist, we have the reason why we are playing like a little children. Nobody, we can always blame the art. So I could say that if you observe the child, the young child from, you know, their early age, like the first few months or first 2 or 3 years, and the way that they're playing, it could be used in the performance art. It could be reminding of the performance art, what performance art is doing, like just having fun. I know some performance artists who when I asked them what they did in their performance art, and they just said like, I just had fun. So this could be one of the reasons why you're one of the essence why you are doing your performances. Just feel very much fine, you know. It's very important to be grounded, and this grounding could be your preparation for the performance art and how to get to the essence, and also you can use the grounding as the essence, you know. So it could be the part of the performance art, not just when you ground yourself, you ground the audience, you ground the performance art. So it could be the part of that. We talk about the emptiness in the Bhutto, but I think emptiness is one of the most important part of the performance art in general. For example, Marina Abramovic, she did this piece for 3 months. She needs to be totally empty to sit all day and look at the people. So this emptiness is always one of the most important part. It means emptiness or the absence of the ego, because if we still catch the ego, we cannot do performance art. We cannot do all the crazy stuff, you know. So it's important. It's important essence of the performance art. And we can also play with the emptiness in the performance art. We can base our form, our performance on the empty, and so on. There is an endless essence of the performance art. Performance art is still progressing, still developing art form. So we cannot say this is, you know, this is it. So my question is, how do you see performance art? How do you get it? So I just show the photo from my performance for now. So my question is, how do you see performance art?
It's difficult to say into words.
You have something to just comment of today's lecture?
I don't know. I think now about the situation with performance in Russia, and then it seems to me, no, just for me, I don't know, it seems different that in the end of 80s and the beginning of 90s, it was a blossom of all forms of art and also of performance. And the beginning of 20,000, it was a bit tail of this blossom, and then it goes like down, I think, because of political situation, because of many people left Russia for other countries, and so I don't know. Maybe in Serbia and other Balkanian countries the situation is different, but I can't say that that's 2010 years, it was a very good period. It's something like stuck, I think.
I could say that in 2010s, the Serbian and Balkan in general scene goes down. There is not so many artists.
Yeah, the same thing.
I can in this previous decade I could see the other countries like Germany and USA because we have internet, of course. And I could talk about the global situation, but the situation in Serbia is very poor even now. You know, during this Corona period, it's even worse. There is, you know, who are the artists. Like everybody knows them. Like not so, yeah, just a few of them. Like maybe.
I think in Russia may be different, but with the same result, because there are a lot of Russian of artists, a lot of different courses and so on, and many little schools, even for performance art, more cheap or no, but there is no famous artists anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of people, but not great names. I think so. And this thing from the, no, except of Pussy Riot and Pavlensky, but maybe also, I don't know, maybe you know, art group Vaina, War.
No, I heard.
Yes, but now they how to say, they are not now they are now already the whole group, part of them in France, part of them in Russia, but in one period they were strong enough, but it's also political performance.
Well, you know, I lived in Berlin during the, like from around 2015, 16, 17. And Berlin was full of the performance artists, but that's Berlin.
Yeah, it's Berlin.
Yeah, there was like tons of, you know, the young people who wants to do some to experiment with so many forms. So it's opposite to, you know, the Serbia is just 2010s, just everything goes down. Like,
yeah, the same thing.
during the first decade of 2000s when I started, there was so many artists. Not so many like in the maybe 70s or 80s or even 90s, but for sure 2000 just go down. Today, like this decade, like just few of us, really, like I could say like 5 performance artists, real, those who are professionally dealing with this. You know, of course, some people just want to express themselves sometimes, but no, I could say that globally, we are one of the pioneers of this decade with our project, and I hope we will be.
I also hope so.
You have
maybe do you know Russian artist Andrei Bartenyev? He was very famous in the 80s and in 90s, especially in 90s in Russia, and then and just I watched 2 his interviews now, and he said I don't want to make performances more because it's no sense in Russia now, and it's another time, and I feel no support and no interest because public changes, and such kind of performances they don't understand, they don't like, and it's not interesting. And now he's in Spain, and he draws something. It's good, but
I know many artists even here stopped doing the performance art because they were disappointed by the government and think, you know, but I don't agree with them because I don't do my performance because of the government. Screw the government. So I don't get any support even now. So I do this because of myself. I saw my friend a few weeks ago. He's one of the a very famous Serbian artist who started this Corpus Artisticum movement where I start my career. And he's a little bit sick, so he don't do many performance art. He lives in USA now, and he was visiting his mother here, and he's doing some new form about like a theory of performance, basically talking about the performance piece that nobody saw, or some people saw, and maybe some documentation exists in the fundus, but the focus is on the story, on the talk. Maybe this art piece don't even exist, but they're talking about. They are. He's talking about the concept, so it's really fascinating to me. There is no action, there is no artist, but we are talking about the piece. So for me, it's a new form. I don't like it so much. It could be, yeah. It could be something new. I think we are doing something basic. I don't think we are endlessly performing art. Is the focus is on online form, but on this togetherness, because we are artists from all over the world, and also on this longevity. And because we are going to create 365 pieces for the next year. And what I plan for the next year is to show these pieces in the galleries in Serbia, in Greece, in Germany, maybe in Russia and USA. And during these exhibitions, we are going to perform in the galleries and create a new art that we are going to show the next year. So we will have this endlessly performing, process. Also, you can show your own work next year on the website, on our platform, and what you do the next year we are going to show in the galleries the year after. So this is the idea, like just to have endlessly art.
But Marco, don't you think that public changed last 10 years?
Oh, wow.
That a lot of people, their attention changed. It's not so strong that it was before, and also it was too much things in the beginning of this 2000, and now they're a bit, I don't know, bored about it.
I think in 2010 we have this decade of a lot of criticism, a lot of professionalism in performance art. So it goes a little bit snobbish, I could say, and now we are dealing with this is just 2 years, of this new decade. We are dealing with the existential crisis, and
Of course.
many people say that next year will be the huge financial crisis in the world. So of course, first the artists are going to feel that.
Yes.
Yeah, we are going to be hungry. So I think what is going to happen with the criticism in the public is going to change totally, especially because of this existentialism, new existentialism. What we because of the topic that we are going to deal, and we have a new critics, we have a new audience, we have online audience. I don't think, personally, I don't think the social medias are a little bit dying. People are not so much on the Facebook. This TikTok is totally ridiculous. I don't see.
But a lot of people are there.
But I don't know. I'm really curious how, because people are going to be on the internet, but how we are going to get to the audience, and or what kind of audience is going to come.
But it seems to me that it's very difficult now to keep their attention for the long time, especially young people, because they are used to this short, no, for example, short videos on
Yeah.
TikTok, short text. For example, I was in one exhibition 2 days ago, and it was very, I think, great video installation with many objects, and it was on big wall, and it was for, I don't know, maybe for 10 minutes. And I was the single who was sitting and watched on this, because other people, they go, they watched for 2 minutes maybe, they make selfie with it, and that's all, they go away. It wasn't interesting for them to look of all this video, but it's the whole work, 10 minutes. So I don't know.
Should start creating something very short, or not, or just going and doing whatever we want.
Yeah, that's a question.
It will bring some audience, you know. I don't think this is the permanent situation. It's just just at this moment, and maybe it will change, because art should change the situation. We should.
Yeah,
What happened here in Serbia, what I criticize all the time, and I'm actually doing this lecture in Monday in Serbian language for the live, and what I'm going to say is that last 10 years people play safe. During the 90s and the 2000s, they protest, they did their activist work. Last 10 years, they don't have guts to do that. They always want to be safe, not to criticize like the Ministry of Culture or the government, because maybe they got some money or something. So they have these all performances were very safe, if I can say. Maybe talking about the gender, or the topics that are dictating by the European Union or the Ministry of Culture, talking about the gender, or I don't know, whatever. And there is no, like, I always say, like, if you talk about the feminism, I want to see the Pussy Riot. I don't want to see the flowers. And last month there was like a feminist exhibition, and there is so much flowers. It was so sweet and not radical at all. I didn't understand this exhibition at all. And this is what happened with the performance art. Nobody really showed the message. Everything is so nice. Really playing safe. We need somebody to show, somebody to change this.
Yeah. No, but really in Russia, nothing is safety now, because you never know to cancel. So
I know.
It's
but
really an absurd situation.
I don't think, especially now with these passes, this COVID passes, I think we are going to. I think I will see some radical thing. There is an artist who is in the group, but you didn't met her, Natasha. She did really nice piece last year. She used this alcohol and asepsol, the asepsol. Yeah, and she cleaned herself for 1 hour with alcohol and asepsol.
Okay.
Expressing what happened last year, like, and the piece was called the disinfection, because as you remember, last year we were putting this alcohol all the time on ourselves and everything. So this was really inspiring to her. And I don't see so many COVID performances, but I hope somebody will start doing it. Maybe I will start doing it, especially with this, because this this green pass is something really radical, and we should answer this in some form. Yeah. Okay. Do you have questions? Okay, if you don't have a question,